to
Top
you.
of the morning to you.
What are we like,
Hmm.
Irish or something
I was
now?
gonna say that's like the Irish.
The
Right?
Irish live stream.
Go get me some tea and crumpets.
I have coffee.
I actually have tea. I like tea, but I
You have
also have
crumpets
coffee.
though. You have
Coffee
crumpets.
time. No crumpets, unfortunately.
Ah,
Crumpets are good though.
unfortunately.
Hmm.
Good morning, everybody. I hope everyone is doing great. I know we have a bunch of people tuning in to these live streams now, which is amazing. If you guys do, I think Randall
If
has an
you
announcement
are
for you.
tuning into the live stream, let us know down in the comments. We would love to give you a shout out, say, hey, what's up, your name and your name
Say,
and your
hey,
name,
what's up,
and
Melissa Usher? Nice like. Good morning,
what
Chris.
up? Good morning.
Good morning,
Go
Chris.
ahead. Say you were gonna say something else.
Well, I was also going to say, if you guys have questions, because I know it can be challenging learning development. I'm experiencing this now trying to learn hacking, and it's challenging. And sometimes it just helps to be able to ask questions. So if you do run across things that are challenging and you have questions, this is a great opportunity to ask us questions. We can answer them for you live. Or if you missed this, you can always post a question afterwards. We will answer it for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, Eric, as well. And Danny, good morning.
Good morning.
Dan Garrow, good morning. And I see him in the comments.
I said morning.
I know.
I
Uh,
like responding. I feel like I feel it's impulsive.
I know it's like you just got to say hello to everybody in here. Well, so great to have you guys here. Today's topic is how to find your what and why. And what do we mean by that? What your what and why?
Why?
Why
Why?
should we? Yeah, like
Yeah, why should I do
why even
anything?
bother?
What?
Well, yeah. Isn't it what's that like old thing like who's on first? Like who,
No, I
Oh,
think you're thinking of, dude, where's my car? What's
no,
mine
it's like an
say?
old joke.
Dude,
Like
what's mine
yeah.
say? Sweet. What's mine say? Dude, what's
What is it?
mine
It's
oh
say?
like who's
man.
Sweet.
on first, why's on second. So it's very
Yeah.
confusing, and
Yeah,
that's the
it's
point of
meant to
it.
be
But like,
confusing.
yeah,
Well, ours is not meant to be confusing. Today's topic is meant to be enlightening, right? Our goal here is to enlighten you about what you want to be and really what kind of developer you want to be and why you want to be that developer is what we're going
yeah.
for.
Because I think I the reason I thought this up is like I was thinking like I see seen so many people come through like schools and stuff that like seem to be in programs like that just aren't for them, you know? And I
Yeah.
was thinking about that like, and I felt that way too when we went to our boot camp. Like there was people that like didn't seem like they really were that interested. And it's like, you
Yeah.
gotta be interested to do this. It's not by any stretch easy, but it's definitely doable.
Totally.
And I think if you really like it, it's like really enjoyable. So figuring out why you're actually here is a really good thing to do for everybody to keep them motivated and focused on their goals.
Yeah. You made me think of this thing, right? About have you ever asked somebody like, tell me about yourself? And pretty much the first thing that everyone will always say is their job title,
Yeah.
right? Like anytime you ask somebody like, "Hey, nice to meet you," like what are you into? And they're like, "I'm a teacher," or like, "I'm a
Yeah.
pediatrician," or something, right?
How we
People
define
like,
ourselves by how
yeah,
we sell
like
our labor.
right. And it's interesting that we identify so deeply with our job title, and yet most of us just like sort of end up in a job by default, right? Like we
Yeah.
just like sort of happen into a job. We don't really put a lot of planning behind it. And so I think it's really interesting that that happens so frequently. And it's something that clearly happens in software
Chris.
development a lot. Ask somebody who's unemployed, Chris. Oh man. It's like, yeah, what do you tell me about yourself? Like, I got nothing to tell you. I'm unemployed. Sorry.
I have no way to identify myself or
Yeah.
anything in the world. It's
Yeah.
very hard. Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, so but I think that's interesting that we just sort of like default into, whatever job title we have and we don't put so much behind it, right?
I
And
think
like
it's because we
actually
also
exciting
ask
about it.
we ask people to choose these things when they're like 17 and
Yeah.
then to stick with it for their whole lives, even though we live super long now. And it's
Yeah.
like, they probably forgot too. 80% of them were like, I have no idea why I do this anymore. It's just this
Yeah.
is what I am,
And
you
also
know?
there's not really a good process, I don't think, for finding out
No.
what you're good at or like what you'd be suitable for. I remember in like middle school we took one of those like tests that was like what job
Oh, good
are
job.
you?
Yeah.
And it's just asks you like a bunch of random questions, but how much can you get out of that? Like a generic test that's meant for a million people, right? So I think today, I think it's would be a good practice for us to sort of help people understand, not just like I want to be a software developer. I think that's important first too. Obviously, is do you want do you really want this?
Does it
But
send
then
money?
what kind of software developer do you want to be? Because this field is huge, right? There's a ton of different things you can do. Go ahead,
Like,
Dan.
why did you guys feel confident that like getting into software development was right for you? Just forget about the what type of development, but like just why getting into it.
Yeah. Go ahead, Randall.
Yeah.
For me, there were two main things. So like most
Hackers the
people,
movie.
yeah, yeah, right. So there were two main things. Most people think about a job and they don't think about the lifestyle that that job has. And
Mm,
so I
Yeah.
thought about the lifestyle I wanted first. And I wanted a lifestyle where I could work for myself. I could work when I want, where I want, with who I want. And I started looking for jobs that I could do that. And there's not very many of them, but development is one of them. And then there was another thing that really did it for me. So in terms of earning money, most people trade their time for money and they do it very, very poorly. They trade it with McDonald's for like $7 an hour or maybe $12 an hour if they live on the West Coast, something
mhm.
like that. But there are a few professions that actually you can leverage your earning potential ridiculously huge. Real
Yeah.
estate's one of them,
Mm,
but development is another one. So I'm like, oh, development ticks both of these boxes. Why am I not doing that? And at that point, I was working, more than a 9 to 5 job. I was working like 60 hours a week as a veterinarian, and I realized I had to change my career. And it wasn't easy, and I was doing a whole bunch of other stuff. But I knew that when I get to that point, that's exactly the life and the income that I want to be earning. So it'll be worth it, whatever struggles I have to go through.
Nice.
yeah. Good morning, Melissa.
Good
Um,
morning.
yeah, I agree with that. I think for me, one of the main reasons why I found myself in software development is because I basically kept doing other things and then finding myself dragged back into a tech role. So I actually went to school for horticulture, like for like farming, and which I loved and I still do. I literally like yesterday picked a bunch of mangoes and bananas out of my backyard, which was awesome. But after graduating from college, I moved to California to try to work in the wine industry, which was like sort of a dream of mine. And then I realized very quickly, like I couldn't because there's a very specific California degree that you have to get in order to work in the wine industry. So I was like, okay, that's shot. And, there's not that much money to be made in that field. And it's very competitive because it's like, how many farmers do you need? Like there's like one farmer for like a whole farm.
Yeah.
So I ended up doing other things. Like I started learning SEO, right? I went back to tech. I did sales, but I did tech sales. So I took on all these other jobs and it kept bringing me back. And pretty soon I realized like, I don't know why I was like ignoring the signs forever. I mean, I started using a computer at like 4 years old. I remember like when I was a kid, my mom used to work at home and she would like sit me down on my own computer to play like Reader Rabbit as she worked. And, I like have this deep love for computers and I've always been curious about them. And um, so I'm like, why am I sort of avoiding something that I love so much and something that I naturally have been drawn to? And then I think the more specific reason like I became a web developer is because there's a very creative aspect of web development that I like. And I have that like passion for creativity and the creative eye of like the art of it. Um, and so I think that's why I went sort of down that road. What about you,
That's
Danny?
yeah, I mean, I actually kind of similar. It's like I always loved tech, and I don't know why. Like, I never it took me a long time to realize that. Like, we actually had I don't know if you guys remember word processors. This is going back
Mhm.
like pre-computer, when it was basically like Windows. It was basically like Word but that was the whole machine. Yeah, we
Yeah.
had one of those, and then we had a computer really early too. And I loved it. I always loved tech. I always loved the hardware and two aspect of it and like keeping up to date with stuff. And then
Yeah.
yeah, and the creativity aspect is also one of the reasons why I got development, web development, because I think one of the things I always liked about philosophy, and this one might sound weird, is the creativity of arguments, like writing papers and stuff. You can be really creative in how you present your ideas, and I always loved that.
Yeah.
So I like that there was this outlet for creativity. The other really important thing for me was I felt so stuck in my career as an educator because it was like just boxes all around you and what you can do. You can't do doing new things is like impossibly hard. There's committees freaking everything. There's bureaucracy everywhere. And this is like you can do what as long as you can learn it, you can do it. And that is like one of the coolest things about this industry is it's like still one of the few where you can be self-taught. You just have to show that you
Yeah.
can do it. And I think that's like amazing because that doesn't exist anymore. You always need a piece of paper to get in the door anywhere. And it's like now
Yeah.
you really don't, which is cool. You just have to prove that you can do it, which you make your own paper kind of. It's actually merit based to some
Yeah.
extent. Yeah.
Yeah, it was I think that's a great point. I had a meeting this week with some guys who are building a crypto project, and they previously built a protocol, like a crypto protocol that had, I think it was something like $60 billion total value locked, like big deal. And it's just two guys who like built this whole thing. And it was really interesting. They reached out to me on LinkedIn. I didn't even like reach out to them. They just found me, and they were like, we need a front end developer from the States who we can rely on when we do our launch. And they, asked me, and basically all I did was just show them the projects that I built in the past. And they're like, perfect. You
Yeah.
know everything. Nobody asked me for a resume. Nobody asked me
Nope.
for literally didn't ask for anything. They just wanted to see, okay, you built this. And they're like, yep, we just
Wait, they didn't want your high school transcript?
no,
Yeah.
they didn't
What
want my
kind of
permanent
background checking are
record.
they doing?
Nothing. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. And it's like, they're like, how much do you make? And or like, how much do you charge? I was like, 100 an hour. And they were like, totally happy with that. I could have
Yeah.
said 200 an hour and they probably would have been happy. So that's the sort of leverage that you can command in this field. And I think that's such a good point is that, you know, you can't have that leverage in many other fields because most other things people can figure out pretty quickly. Even with ChatGPT and things that are out now, it's very difficult for the average person to like go about building a web application on their own or something like that, right?
Yeah,
Like
they don't even
just
know how to
can't do
start,
it.
dude.
Yeah.
Because unless you
Look,
do it, like even when well, I was gonna just real quick, sorry, right? Like when we started New Camera, we're like, dude, like the whole process, you don't realize like everything involved till you really do it. You just
Yeah.
don't. Like it's just something you don't see, and like you don't realize how to plan it. So like, yeah, I can imagine it, dude. If you had no background, it'd be super hard. Even though you could theoretically use it to do it without knowing it, you don't know the questions to
even
ask.
even like simple things. I mean, like
Yeah,
when you talk to people who are C-level or just like non-tech people, explaining them to them how an API works is like magic, right? You're like, yeah, you just make a call and then you get this information back, and anything that you have to explain about the tech intricacies of it, like it's a JSON object and then you have to extract piece of data out of it. They're like, don't you just put the button in and it does it?
yeah.
Like that's like that's
Yeah, you
like
have
the
to use
understanding
metaphors and
that
stuff
most
because
people
like
have.
trying to break it down. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
there's so much leverage in that because they're like, well, we can't do it on our own. We need to hire somebody, and they get to set their price because either we hire them at their price or we don't have somebody. And I think the other awesome like part of that in terms of leverage is that it doesn't just have to be you're working for somebody else. You can build anything you want on your
yeah.
own. Like you can build something that just helps people in the world. Like I've seen in the group this week, a lot of people, and I think this is awesome, who are getting out there and saying, hey, I want to build this. Like this is something that I'm passionate about. I think it was like Aaron or James. James
James.
wrote that he wanted to build an app. And I think that's great, right? Like we encourage stuff like that where you guys, this is a community, right? We don't want people to promote things in this, but we do want you to like work together. The point of this community is that people find other people to work with and you can build awesome products. And if it's something that he's passionate about, I'm sure there's other people out there. Go ahead, Randall.
Yeah.
And that's a great segue because as we mentioned last week in our live stream, we are going to be rewarding some of our top contributors every
Yes.
month. Now, as to what we're rewarding, that's still a secret right now. But we just want to let you guys know so that you can get in the ranks for the people who post the most often, the most interactive things, and who post on other people's things. Whoever's at the top, we're going to be having some pretty cool things for you at the end of each month. So if you like free stuff and free cool stuff, then definitely you want to start contributing.
Yeah, and we're definitely going to make that stuff super valuable because we value people who contribute to the group. And the easiest way to do that is to just make posts about things that you're passionate about. Like while you're going throughout your day and you're like, I have a question about this, or I wanted to share this, put it inside the group. Don't just share it like on your own Facebook feed, put it inside the group because this is a community of people who are passionate about the same things you are.
I was gonna say, I don't know about you guys, but like there's so many times where like I'll be like researching something, I see something cool, and then I'll send you guys a message just with a link. Like feel free to do that in the group. If you guys are like doing research on something, you come across a really helpful, like you're like, wow, this is so helpful for learning CSS or whatever it is. Let everybody know because that's super valuable to everybody.
Yeah.
Those resources exist out there, and sometimes the hardest part is finding the good ones, that are actually like clear and easy to follow.
I can't tell you how many people I've talked to in the past few weeks, like inside the community here, who are like, dude, you guys suggesting CodePen was like the best thing I've ever found, right? And it's
super helpful,
yeah. And it's funny because we've known about it for so long, and it's like you forget that we just have this thing as humans, I think, where we assume anything that I know, everyone else in the world already knows, right?
Yeah,
that happens to me all the time.
We have a hard time
then everybody already knows my passwords?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, that too.
Password 1234 exclamation point.
Oh, it's not that hard.
With a capital P.
Characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we assume people just know the things that we know, and it's not true most of the time, right? So sharing those things like CodePen or anything that you find valuable, share it in the group because somebody's going to get something out of it. And I was at like a school function for one of my kids earlier, and somebody was talking about this, and I think it's really true. Like there is a direct relationship between how much you put out in the world and how much you get back. And so there's a lot of people I know in this group who are just sitting here and they come every week, or they sit inside the group and they're like lurkers. They just are trying to absorb things from the group, and they don't realize that you literally get way more when you put things out into the group. You get so much more back. So I encourage everybody to do that, and we're going to give you some nice, valuable rewards if you do.
Yeah, and like this.
Back to you, Randall.
Yeah, thanks, Russell. Yeah. So I just want to point out, say thanks to Bryce and Randall this week who were posting about what they're working on, because that was awesome for everybody to see what they're working on, to see, projects that they could potentially do something similar themselves, or if they have comments, add to it.
It's also helpful too when people post their projects. There's also good experience to share your code and also look at other people's code and see how they're doing things. It never hurts. And it's also helpful too, because you might see something and be able to actually help somebody. And that feels great, dude. That is such a win when you're learning, when you're like, oh, I know what the problem is. It's this, and it's just really nice.
So I have a question.
Wait, I want to make a last point before you make your question. If you're in here and you haven't actually contributed anything yet, here's something good that you can do to start. Just introduce yourself and say what you're working on and why you want to be a developer. And that's it. That's all you got to do. It's a great start. Okay, back to you, Randall.
Thanks, Russell. And that was actually a great segue, talking about why you're becoming a developer. What is the topic of this episode, and why would you want to become a developer, for people who actually tuned into the topic?
The topic is, what kind of developer you want to be and why. And so I think we can get back to that because I think there's a lot of different types of developers. And I have, when we do our action calls, which if you are looking for an action call, just type in big, bold print down in the comments, and we'll reach out to you and give you a 30-minute action call to help you figure these things out, like what kind of developer that you want to be and why. But I've had this a lot in action calls where that's one of the first questions that I ask people is like, what kind of developer do you want to be? And most of the time I get a blank stare in return,
The one
right?
that makes the most money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Well,
I wanted to comment on that because I think a lot of
yeah.
people get into development because they're sold this dream of, oh, I can go program on a beach somewhere and make a ton of money. And
Hmm.
it's like, well, maybe you can, yeah, but it's going to take
True.
5 years to get there. And
Could, yeah.
maybe you hate development. So like
Yeah.
development
Yeah.
also isn't for everybody. You know,
Yeah.
if your dream job is not sitting in front of a computer all day and having problem after problem after problem, then maybe development isn't your dream job. You know, no
Yeah.
matter how much money you make.
Yeah. I think that's true. I mean, you definitely have to be interested in computers. If you're struggling to like find the Facebook group or something like that, then it may not be ideal for you. But it's really just like how much you're willing to face, right? To get to that dream. Like if if technology is not your strong suit, it's going to take you longer. If you're very
Yeah.
passionate about technology and about software and solving problems and puzzles and things like that, you're going to learn faster. And that's why, like you were saying, it's going to take 5 years. I think that is a realistic number for most people, but it could be far
Mhm.
less too, right?
Mhm.
Um, it just depends on your skill set and how much time and energy you're willing to put into crafting that, and becoming better at it. Go ahead,
You
Daniel.
know,
Back to
one
you,
of the ways,
Danny.
thank you. Thanks, Randall. One of the ways I knew too is like I noticed kind of early on that like even when it was hard, I still was excited to do it every day. And
Yeah.
I still am. Like I still enjoy opening VS Code and like sitting down to do projects. So like I
Yeah.
think that is something like a great indicator is like listening to yourself because I think that's something like I wish I did more when I was at my old career because like there was so many signs like my body was telling me about like that I didn't really want to do this anymore that I just took my brain a long time to realize. So I think paying attention to yourself and seeing like is this really for me? Is it feel like natural or does it
Yeah.
feel like a fight? I mean it will feel like a fight sometimes of course,
It's
but
going to
like
feel like a fight in the
yeah.
beginning just because it's overwhelming. But as long as you're feeling that motivation to keep coming back to it, I think that's what you're getting
Well, I
at
think that's
there.
the trick that you need that motivation because you have to
Yeah.
keep coming back because you're gonna hit problem after problem. I mean, that's part of development, right? It's solving problems. That's all it is. It's
Yeah.
figuring out solutions to things. So yeah.
Yeah.
And
Go ahead, Randall.
I also think that having a direction for becoming a type of developer is helpful, but thinking that that's the only way that you're going to end up is not helpful. Like I've
Mm,
gone through so many
Yeah.
different directions in terms of getting where I am in development, and I never would have guessed where I am now based on where I started. So it's something
yeah.
where, like a lot of people will be like, well, I don't know. Maybe I want to do databases. Maybe I want to do web development. Maybe I want to, whatever. And I think they kind of get lost in the weeds there. It's more important just to find the first shiny object, the first thing that you think you could be really interested in, and dive all the way into that until you understand it. And then
Yeah.
once you get a little bit further down the road, you'll be able to say, hey, this is for me, or hey, this isn't for me. And if it's not for you, you can change it. If it is for you, then you're golden.
Well, I
Yeah.
can speak to that too. Like I learned Python and Django first, which I really actually loved. I still love Python a lot, but then I realized that like I really actually like React and JavaScript more for what I like to do because I actually like the creative part. I like
Yeah.
databases too, and I like working with data a lot. That's why I like full stack. It gives me that option to do both. But I really like doing both. So like I think that's also, it's like, but that's fine. You figure it out and then you can once you've already learned some stuff too, it's easy to transition to something else.
Yeah. I wanted to mention this too because I had a call with Randall, not the one on the screen here, but Randall inside the
Mhm.
group. And I thought this was a great point is he's, a math teacher. And I think it's really important when you're getting into software development and you want to figure out what kind of developer to become, to think about your strong suits and like your qualities, right?
Yeah.
Like things that you already bring to the table, because that's going to accelerate your learning and also provide more value when you go into the job market. Because, me going out and saying, hey, I'm a data analytics software developer versus Randall, who's like, I came from a background of teaching mathematics to turning that into data analytics. he's going to get every job before I do because I just don't have the math background that he does. However,
And he's
if
got a
it was-
pretty cool name that could
yeah,
help
yeah,
too.
Yeah.
yeah. Um, but if it was like web development where I have like a lot of creative background of, graphic design and things like that, and just digital marketing, that benefits me as a web developer. So think about the things that you've already done in your past and how that could relate to what kind or even just what field you want to get into when it comes to software development. And that's what I tell a lot of people too, is like they're looking for jobs, right? And they're just applying widespread to anything under the sun that will accept an application from them. And it's actually way better to sort of niche down your job applications to fields where like you actually have other experience. Like if you worked in sales before, or whatever it is, like whatever field you guys have worked in, veterinarians, right? You can go out and find a job working as a veterinarian software developer, right? Find a company that needs a software developer in veterinary
Or
science.
medical or
Then,
something, right?
yeah, or
You'd have a
medical or
background for that. You'd
whatever it
understand that
is
stuff.
that you've done, because then you just like bring this other something else to the table that they're like, wow, well, this person already understands our business model. Plus, they're a software developer who's talented. So why wouldn't we hire them?
Yeah.
Stop laughing, Randall.
I was
See,
just thinking about the business model from Arrested Development.
Yeah.
When Joe was like, did somebody say business model? Solid as a rock. Okay.
all right,
Yeah.
back to, yeah,
Back to you, whoever's next.
back to somebody else, not
The other thing
Randall.
the other thing I think that's helpful, and it seems kind of counterintuitive, is think about why you hate the job that you're in too.
Mm,
And like, because I think that's something like, if you really hate your job, just learning software development, applying for another job in the company might just end up in the same situation, because if the things you hate about your job are, say, working for someone else, that might
yeah,
be a problem. So like think about like what you actually hate too, and like why to find something that's not going to leave you in that position again. And for me, that was a big one. Like having that flexibility and stuff was huge. So like, yeah, I mean, keep that in mind. Yeah.
yeah,
Danny, that's a great one. Is actually staying at your job that you hate
yes,
while you learn the new career. Like so many people are
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I want to learn web development. I'll just quit my job and then I'll learn it." And it's like, cool. But if you stay at that job that you hate, like I used to have this boss that I could not stand. Like still just the mention of her name makes my skin crawl. And like but I stayed at that job for so freaking long while I was doing other stuff because it made everything else that I was doing absolutely mandatory. It was no longer like, I don't feel like it. It was like, I hate this job and this person that I work for, and I'm going to use that to do whatever I can to get out of this.
yeah. I wanted to mention something else related to that, which I think is an important point because this happened. I've had a couple of friends actually ask me about this year. They like have gotten a job and they hate their job and they're like, should I just quit and find something else? Or, um, you know, like they're so quick to quit the job to find a new job. And obviously I understand why. But I always suggest they don't. And the reason why is not so much just like obviously because you're making an income, but also it's a mindset thing, right? When you don't have a job, you're in this mindset of desperation, of needing something else, and that comes through in your application. It comes through in your interviews. But if you go into an interview and you're like, "Yeah, I already have a job," number one, employers are automatically see that as more valuable, right? But it's you're a mindset of abundance versus like desperation of needing, right? You're like, I have a job, I just want a better one, versus like I'm
Yeah.
just struggling to get any job I can, right? It makes you look different to somebody else, but also just internally your mindset is so different. So, and like you said, Randall, having that job that you hate, yeah, you hate it, but it's a source of income. And two, it's showing you the things that you don't want and helping you like have motivation to find something else.
Yeah.
There was a book by Scott Adams, the writer of Dilbert. I
Mm-hmm.
forget the name of it. It was something about mindsets or something like that. But he had an interesting point in there that he was like, really, when it comes down to it, your only job is to actually get a better job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
true.
like, yeah, it's crazy because everybody thinks, no, my job is I'm supposed to do this and that and that. And it's like, not really. You're just supposed to get a better job because eventually you get a job that's so good that you really don't work another day in your life, so they say.
That's
Yeah,
the goal, right? That's always the dream. Never working again.
yeah.
Love it so much.
I mean, usually the higher level job you have, the less actual work you do. It's just you have more responsibility over people.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well, we're at 30 minutes. If anybody has a quick question, throw them in the comments. If not, we are
While we're
going.
waiting for those
Oh,
questions, it should be noted that, aside from all the excellent free content that we offer everyone here on Facebook, there is also a premium level tier only for those ballers who are cooler than everybody else and or willing to invest in themselves, which is actually turns out the best investment, not real estate, not gold, not cryptocurrency. Investing in
In
yourself
yourself.
is the best one. So
true
for those
that.
of you who are interested in that, we offer something called Web Dev Incubator. And what we do is not only do we teach you web development, but we also help you create awesome projects to have on your portfolio. And if it's for you, we help you get work as soon as possible. So you're getting paid while you're in the boot camp, but it's not a boot camp.
It's not a boot camp. But I
Yeah.
also want to mention anybody who's been considering it, who's been sort of on the fence, we added even more value to it this week. We started doing a Wednesday session as well. So just to give you guys an idea of sort of what you get when you join this program is you get a curriculum that's a web development curriculum like you'd find in any boot camp, right? So you're going to learn everything from HTML, CSS, JavaScript frameworks, databases, all that good stuff.
Cybersecurity,
Because Randall's cybersecurity expert on staff here.
Yeah.
Not yet, but
Right on staff.
Now you are. I mean, dude, you have a master's in cybersecurity. That's
Yeah.
like, come on.
And top
Any-
1% on Try Hack Me.
Yeah. So
But
like,
once
stop
I
trying to
have
like
the
downplay
OSCP,
yourself.
once I have the OSCP, then
Yeah.
I'll
Shut
say,
up.
okay, fine.
Okay. Anyway, we have a intermediate cybersecurity
There we go.
advisor on staff.
Mhm. There we go.
So you get all that curriculum. Plus, we help you with quarterly planning so that you can map out like where you are now to where you want to be, and help you sort of step through that as a developer. We also have a 2-hour session on every Saturday right after this call. So if you are in the Web Dev Incubator, we'll see you in there in about a half hour. But that's a mentoring session and accountability. So we talk about everything that we did this week, anything that we struggled with, any projects that we're working on, and we actually like help people with their code. So we share screen, we show code, and we literally walk through any concept that anybody's struggling with. On top of that, you also get a private Telegram group, so you can message us directly anytime during the week, 24/7, and we'll reach out, give you answers, give you motivational support, whatever it is that you need. There's also the community of other members inside of there. And then this week we just added another Wednesday session, which is 2 hours, but we actually went a whole hour extra this week. And basically we're doing a live coding project together. So we're all sitting down, sharing screen, and building a project together. And so you want to tell them what we're building, Randall or Danny?
Back to you, Danny.
You
Go
guys
in the restaurant selector,
Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah,
which side
so-
on? Yeah.
Yeah, so we're building a cool portfolio project where basically it uses the Google Maps API. You type in your location and the types of restaurants that you potentially want to go to. It pulls up all the ones within a certain radius, and then it randomly selects one for you. So you and your girlfriend or your boyfriend or your whatever friend don't have to choose, right? You can.
And it's a cool full stack web app so that we're gonna build.
Exactly. And Chris said Wednesday was amazing. React is such awesome tech. So we're teaching React in there. So even if you are still learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript, you can actually start learning the basics of React.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And coding in it. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Sorry.
and Chris, let everybody know how long you've really been coding for real for, and you're already doing React projects.
Like, I mean, yeah. It's amazing.
That's pretty nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty sweet. And he's picking up on it like amazing. I mean, You like I could just see his mind being blown over and over and over on Wednesday, which was so cool because he's like, oh, this is why people don't use HTML, CSS, and
Yeah,
JavaScript to like
'cause it's
build stuff.
slow.
They just, yeah, because it's like, dude, we just built a whole like application in like 20 seconds, right? So
Yeah.
since January, really, is what Chris said.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, it's not that long, and you can start learning these concepts and building things. And the reality is, the faster you start building things with JavaScript frameworks like React, Next.js, the faster you start doing that, the faster you're going to get into the job market because you can
Yeah.
sit all day and learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, which is undoubtedly important, but that's not what employers are hiring for unless you're have a time
And
machine
you also
to the
keep learning that
1990s.
stuff as you work on other things. So it's like it's not like you
Exactly.
stop learning. I think that's the important thing to keep in mind. You just need to know enough to move on. I think that's the main thing.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's where
Well,
we're gonna go, people.
I wanted to thank all the people who showed up today. Everybody new. I see all these names like Melissa, Eric Nelson, Estello. Chris is always here. Chris is the bomb. Chris is getting that award this week or this month, I think, for top contributor. I mean, if there's one top contributor, it's been Chris, man. It's funny because we say this all the time, but the more you put out there, the more you get back. Chris has gotten so much value out of this group, and it's amazing to see like his progress. I mean, since January, he's been crushing it. So if you guys
Yeah.
want to become a developer, be like Chris. Be like Chris. Contribute more, join Web Dev Incubator, get as much as you can out of this group. We're here to support you guys. So with that, you guys have any closing thoughts?
Meh.
Nope. Sounds good. All right. If you're in the Web Dev Incubator, we'll see you in about a half hour at 10 a.m. Otherwise, thank you guys for tuning in. Hope you got some value out of this. Yeah, he got an offer to apply for a job in LinkedIn yesterday. Never happened before.
Nice. Nice.
Whoa.
Way to go, Chris.
Very
Amazing.
nice.
Amazing. Good stuff, man. See you guys
That's
soon.
awesome.
All right.
All right.
Have a good Saturday, everybody. We will see you next week, and I'll be in Mexico next week. So
Sweet.
I'll be tuning in
Drunk.
from the beach. Nah,
Yeah, drunk on the beach.
drunk at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
the
if
sun
that ain't
rises pretty
Mexico,
early there.
yeah, I'll have
Yeah,
a
right.
tequila shot in hand. Oh man.
Mhm. A tequila sunrise. There you go.
There you
There you
go.
go.
All right. Well, thank you guys. We will see you next week. Again, yes, again. I love Mexico, man. And that's the power of being a developer.
Mhm.
See you guys.
Later.